Cool. So today my TED Talk is on alignment. And I'm not talking about your spine and I'm not talking about your teeth. Instead, I'm talking about morals. And to get started, we'll do a fun little experiment where I'm going to say 4 basic statements. And all I want you to do is, if you agree with those statements, just raise your hand. That's as simple as it will be. So the first statement is about humans. I believe we should care about other human beings and I do not want to contribute to their suffering. Raise your hand if you agree with that. No psychopaths work here. Okay, perfect. That's fantastic. The next statement about the environment. I believe we should care about the environment and I think I should be mindful of how my choices make an impact. Raise your hand. Still everyone. Okay, perfect. Health. I believe I should care about my personal health. Okay, I think we lost a couple and that's okay. But for the most part, that's everyone. That's good. And the last thing about animals, I'm against animal abuse and I believe in avoiding causing harm to animals as far as is possible. Still everyone. Okay, great. That's awesome. Well, I have a couple of things to say about your moral choices and I think that's fantastic. And I have to break some news to you about everything that you agree with here. You are a vegan. First of all, let me say I've never been in a room with so many vegans, so this is really exciting. Second of all, you might be saying, oh, whoa, hold up, Walter. No, I'm not. I'm not a vegan. I go to the circus like weekly. I wear leather whenever I get a chance, and I have animals in my mouth right now. So you might be saying like, oh, no, I'm not a vegan 100%. I'm not going to make the argument that you're living a vegan lifestyle, but I am going to make the argument that you are at least morally a vegan. All 4 of the sentences that I just said are all of the reasons why anybody would become a vegan and start living a vegan lifestyle. And they're all the reasons and all the benefits that a vegan lifestyle is about. I'm going to go through each one of those things and kind of make my case as to why that's what I'm saying. And we'll get to your morals. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story. I was lucky to grow up in what I would consider to be a really strong household. I had an amazing set of parents. The only thing that was really considered unique at the time for my family is that my dad stayed home and my mom went to work. That was so strange at the time that in Wisconsin, they wrote an article about it in the newspaper and it took up 4 pages. 4 pages. So that's pretty strange, but Wisconsin's just strange. That was my upbringing. But when I moved back to Arizona, where I was born when I was 11, unfortunately, our family was hit with the hard news that my dad was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And he, every single year, was told that he was going to die. He went through a countless amount of surgeries and treatments. He had his thyroid removed. He had his larynx removed, which means he had to speak by pressing on a hole in his throat. He also had it spread to his lymph nodes, which means he had tumors in his brains, his brain, his lungs, his legs, all throughout his body. And every single year he was told that he was going to die. And he battled that. And unfortunately, when I was 20 years old, after battling for 10 years, he lost that battle. After that, I went through what I would say is a pretty tough time, kind of a whirlwind in my life. I started a business, I sold a business, I got married, I had 2 kids, I got divorced, and until really putting together this presentation, I don't think I realized how depressed I was during that moment. But because of that depression, I turned to a comfort that many of us do, which is food. And I went through really drastic weight changes. And at my highest, as you can tell over on the top right portion, I was 240 pounds. I was 50 pounds above my normal BMI cap. And so I just kept trying diets after diets. I was on a yo-yo diet like pattern where I'd be doing paleo, I'd be doing keto, I'd be doing calorie counting, I'd be doing kind of everything, you name it. And I would have some success. I'd start to lose some weight, but it always kept coming back on and I kept not having the success that I wanted to. So I started doing a ton of research and one day I stumbled upon the research of a whole food plant-based diet and I switched to a plant-based diet. I ended up losing 70 pounds and getting into my normal BMI. On top of that, I slept better, lost my allergies, had a ton more energy. And in the past almost 3 years that I've been living on this lifestyle, I've not been sick. So I've just had a ton of success with that. Now, while I was going through and living on a plant-based diet, I did a bunch of research on the effects of animal agriculture, not just on my health, but on everything else. And it took me so long. I counted up all the hours of research, and it is over 300 hours that I researched this. I'm going to sum that up basically in the next 7 minutes. So let's get back to the things that I said. So the first thing, and for those of you that care about human beings, you might not realize it, but what's on your plate has an immense impact on other human beings' suffering. So the first thing that happens is I talk about people that are in slaughterhouses. Due to the nature of their work and what they do, they have higher rates of PTSD, PITS, domestic violence, sexual abuse, and other violent crimes, as well as suicide. So obviously we would like to prevent that as much as possible. The next thing that I talk about is people who live in near animal agriculture, and they have higher rates of certain diseases and cancers. And the reason why is this. If you're looking at the picture right now, what you're seeing is what they call a pig farm. It's a factory farm in North Carolina. And all of those pools that you're seeing there on the right, that is all pig feces. It's 800 billion gallons of pig feces that gets spread out onto our land and then filtered down into our oceans. Now, this is sprayed out onto the land because they don't know what to do with it. And that's right around communities. And these communities are usually people of low income and people of color. And they have higher rates of cancers and diseases because of this. And they oftentimes don't have the resources to be able to move because they don't have the capability to do so and the resources to do so. The other way that it affects human beings and causes humans to suffer is world hunger. You might not realize it, but we actually have enough food on this planet to feed 10 billion people. Yet we only have a population of 7.5 billion people, and we have near 1 billion people still starving. Now, a lot of that is food waste, distribution, some political issues, but a lot of that is also how we use our resources to feed animals, so that way first world countries can eat animals rather than using those resources to feed to starving populations. A third of all grain on the entire planet is used to feed animals. And it takes an immense amount of more resources, as you can tell on this one. 2 football fields of farmland would feed only 1 person on a standard American diet. But on a whole food plant-based diet, those same 2 football fields would feed 14 people. So just an immense amount of resources. The other way that it causes human suffering is it's destroying the planet that all beings live on. You've probably heard some of these things, so I'll recap some of them, but you might not realize that animal agriculture is one of the leading causes of greenhouse gases. Depending on the study that you look at, it can be in the top 3, 4, 5 places of the sector that adds to greenhouse gases. Some point to greenhouse gases from animal agriculture for its full life cycle being more greenhouse gases than the entire transportation sector combined. That brings me to the Oxford study. This is the most comprehensive study that was ever done on the relationship between our food and the impact that it has on the planet. They studied over 40,000 farms in 119 different countries, and what they found was the individual could cut their carbon footprint from food by 73% if they would switch to a plant-based diet and give up animal products. What they also found was land. We use 45% of our ice-free land on the entire planet just for animal agriculture, and that land could be reduced by 75% if we all switch to a plant-based diet, which that land size is the US, China, Australia, and the European Union all combined. So a crazy amount of land that we use. We also use 1/3 of all of our clean water, so an immense amount of water. 660 gallons of water is what it takes to make 1 quarter-pound burger. 660 gallons. Rainforest, you might have seen the rainforest in the news recently for those fires. Those fires are not accidents. Those fires are not due to weather. They're slash and burn techniques for agriculture, and up to 91% of the rainforest deforestation is for animal agriculture. They burn it down in order to grow land for cows to graze and in order for us to have food for the animals. It's also the leading cause of species extinction, ocean den zones, water pollution, and habitat destruction. And specifically on water pollution, we care a lot about like the plastic in the oceans, which is fantastic. And most of us are already doing things to cut that down, like cutting down on single-use plastics. But if you're interested in that, it might interest you to know that 46% of all plastic in the ocean is fishing nets. Fishing nets sometimes the size of football fields. So an immense amount of impact on our planet. The next thing is health, the whole reason that I started eating plant-based. Does anybody know what the #1 killer of all human beings is on the planet? Bingo, heart disease. Not cancer, not diabetes, but it's heart disease. The only diet ever proven to reverse our #1 killer is a whole food plant-based diet. Not just prevent it, not just arrest it, but completely reverse. This is a study by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. You can see on the right how blocked up the artery was and how damaged it was. Then after going on a whole food plant-based diet, it not only stopped the damage, but returned it back to its normal state. What you also find interesting is out of all of the people that did this study, there were 21 people that could not stick to the diet and didn't stick with it. There's 177 people that did. Their rate of having another heart-related incident was only 0.6% for the people that stuck to the diet and was 62% for those that could not stick to it. It also has protections against certain cancers and diabetes. This is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics peer-reviewed release statement about a vegan lifestyle. If you don't know what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is, it's the largest group of professionals for nutrition in the whole world. It's 100,000 members. Basically what they state is that an appropriately planned vegan diet is adequate for all stages of life, including infancy, pregnancy, like elderly, athletes, all of it. It's more environmentally friendly, and that it has certain protections against heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, certain types of cancer, and obesity. And speaking on obesity and our epidemic there, and we talk about our BMI, the only group scientifically speaking that is on average in their normal BMI is the vegan group. That doesn't mean that, of course, you can't be in a normal BMI and not be a vegan, but when you study the whole group of people, the only group that on average is in a normal BMI is vegans, not pescatarians, not vegetarians, certainly not standard American diet. The last piece that I'll touch on is, of course, the animals. It's not the least important, it's the most important part about animal welfare and their rights. I promise I will not show you any graphic footage. I will not scare you today, and I will not make you throw up your food. But what I will do is I will share some basic stats with you. Just on land animals, there are 70 billion land animals that are on this planet that are killed every single year for our food production. And none of them are killed at their full life expectancy. They are all babies or adolescents. So for instance, for a cow, the average age of slaughter is 18 months, even though their average lifespan could be 15 to 20 years. That's just land animals. We also talk about the fish. There's 2.7 trillion fish, that's trillion with a T, that are killed from the oceans every single year for our consumption. They measure that not by counting the individuals, but by weight. So it is an estimate, but it is an estimate of trillions of animals. And that only includes the fish, that doesn't include the bycatch. If you don't know what bycatch is, it is when we take those large football net type of nets that I was talking about, we drag it through the ocean, and what we do is we collect a bunch of fish that we're gonna eat, but unintentionally we catch a lot of other animals too. So we're talking about dolphins, whales, turtles, and it's estimated that over 100 million sharks every single year are killed just from bycatch alone, just from being caught in those nets. The last thing that I would encourage you to do when you're thinking about animals, oftentimes I'm an animal rights activist, so I'm out in the street talking about this all the time, and most of the time what I hear is like, well, yeah, but they're just animals, or they're so different from us, they're not humans, they're maybe not as intelligent, or whatever it is. And what I would encourage you to do, instead of looking at our differences, is what we do so many times as humans to judge things, I would instead look at our similarities. And what we have as similarities is the ability to feel pain, to suffer, to have families. They all have mothers, daughters, sons, like friends, family. They have networks. So look at our similarities of what we have instead. Those are the 4 things that we talked about in the beginning that you guys said, like, hey, I agree. I want to, not hurt humans. I want to do something better for the environment. I want to do something better for my health. And I certainly don't want to cause harm to animals if I don't have to. If you find yourself agreeing with those things, what my argument is that a vegan lifestyle is more in alignment with your morals than the alternative. I'll list some additional resources here so that way you can do research yourself. You don't have to do 300 hours, but you can do as much as you would like. The main things that I do recommend you watching are the animal videos. Earthlings, Dominion, and Land of Hope and Glory are all free on the internet. You can just watch them at any point in time. I will warn you, those show exactly what happens on farms. So it is very graphic. So a heads up there. There's also a vegan challenge, and what I'm going to challenge everyone in our company to do is that if you haven't tried it before, give it 30 days. There's something called Veganuary, the dumbest name ever. I didn't come up with it, don't judge me. I wish they had a better name, but it's about trying veganism for the first month of the year and giving it those 30 days to do so. You can do the first 22 days on a challenge. Challenge22.com is a free challenge. You get set up with mentors that help you through the process. They give you recipes. They can give you nutritional advice, especially if you have certain conditions or anything that you're dealing with. It's a great free group. It's all ran through Facebook, so that's pretty easy. But if you could do Veganuary and do it for 30 days, I wanted to show you what you could save. You could save, just in 30 days, 30 animals' lives, 620 pounds of CO2, 913 square feet of forest, 1,370 pounds of grain, and just in 30 days, you could save over 30,000 gallons of water. So I'm going to leave you with the last question that's from my favorite vegan activist. His name is Earthling Ed. You can also check out his YouTube. This is the question that he always asks. If you could live in a world where you hurt animals, where you hurt humans, where you hurt animals, or you could live in a world where you hurt neither, which would you choose? And because all of those are viable options, the question really is, which one will you choose? And which one would be more in alignment with your own morals? Thank you very much. I don't have time for questions because I used all of my time, but if you have any questions, please feel free to come stop and talk to me afterwards. I also have a ton of cards, so if you want those resources, I have them all on cards so you can check those out. Thank you very much for your time.